smiling, I'm smiling too.
Okay, it's Professor Patrick Smith. I'm in the Social Sciences Department here at Broward Community College, now Broward College. And the title that I selected for our seminar on individual freedoms is an analysis of the, I'd say, the obstacles as well as challenges and opportunities related to the total reliance on the internet. And the question I have today really is that I want to address is that of privacy, that in an internet-driven world, do you still have the same expectations of privacy that one had in the past? And in my talk and in my analysis, I'd like to really look at some of the websites, particularly the Center for Digital Democracy and the World Privacy Forum, to familiarize the student with some of those issues and how they're emerging now at the onset of the 21st century.
'Cause this is freedom. Together we'll find the truth.
Hi, I'm Professor Walsh. I teach political science at Broward College. And for the fall lecture series, I will be discussing civil liberties in wartime. I'll basically be looking at it from two fronts. The domestic front, American constitutional law as it applies to individual privacy interests and so forth. Domestic surveillance will certainly be part of the topic of discussion. We will also look on the international front, the war on terror, and the nature of enhanced interrogation techniques primarily, and the role of international law as it applies to American national security interests.
Hi. The first part of my title, Struggle for Freedom in the Workplace, certainly says exactly what I'm going to be talking about. Generally, the history of U.S. women's employment opportunities. My dissertation focus was on sexual harassment policy, so I'll talk a little bit about the history of that in the 1970s and how women argued that sexual harassment shouldn't be part of the job, so it should not be part of the workplace. So essentially they wanted the freedom to work without facing that problem. That will be one thing I'd like to focus on. The second thing is an issue that was defined in the 60s and put into legislation, equal pay. And we'll talk about the more recent legislation our president signed really right after he took office in January, talking about equal pay in the Lilly Ledbetter Act. So some historical issues and more current ones is what I hope to speak with you about on October 14th at 12:30. I hope to see you then.
Thank you.
My name is Dr. Ulrich Balzora, Associate Professor of Religion at Central Campus Social Sciences Department. My lecture is going to be on the religious perspective on fate, fortune, and free will. And fate, fortune, and free will consist of how the Hindus, the Buddhists, Jews, Christians, and Muslims view the concepts of what is a human being, and how does being a human being inform us in terms of our ability to choose. For example, the Judeo-Christian perspective on the competency of the soul, that an individual is created in the image of God and is able to make decisions that they are held responsible for. On the other hand, we'll also be looking on the Eastern perspective, which views such concepts as karma, which is widely used today in America. But I suppose very few Americans actually know what the concept of karma really means. And furthermore, may also look at the concept of the ultimate reality of Brahman or Shunyata in Buddhism, and how those concepts inform us concerning choice and who we are as human beings.
This is freedom. You're smiling. I'm smiling.
Hi, I'm Helena Yeaman. We are going to be discussing regulation, what's the appropriate role of regulation, and we're really going to take kind of a retrospective focus and look at what happened to lead to this crisis. And my contention in my presentation is that both parties contributed significantly to the financial services crisis, both because of a lack of appropriate regulation in addition to inappropriate regulation that didn't really target the problem areas. And so once we look at that retrospective, we discuss a few theoretical things, like what would Adam Smith or Milton Friedman have said about allowing the financial sector to run amok the way it has. where then we'll go into the future and some recommendations for the future on how free the financial sector should really be. Thank you.
'Cause this is freedom. Together we'll find the truth.
Good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be here. My conversation about the concept of freedom is going to be based on the notion of free will. We do have the idea that the freedom that we enjoy comes from the fact that we do have a free will. And my presentation is going to challenge this idea. I'm going to show evidence from philosophy, psychology, neurosciences that free will is an illusion. It really doesn't exist. And consequently, the concept of freedom is a fiction. And how is then possible that we have spent the entire history of humanity dealing with something that doesn't exist? That's going to be the purpose of my lecture.